look at this. Someone has given me a JG SIG. Now I know what you're thinking, very nice. Well, of course, however, you'd be half right. Just listen to this. Now bear in mind, this is currently brand new. This is straight out of the box, and it sounds like it's crying for help. Ready? Let's not do too much of it. However, we will just do, now for the purposes of entertainment and no other reason, listen to full, but only for a second or two. Yeah, that is a problem, and let's see if we can sort it. So let's open it up and see what we need to do to make that better. Now, on a quick assessment of in here, before we open up anything, let's just see if there's any evidence to show us what is screaming at us. Now, we know it's going to be gear or motor related. However, if we try this first of all, if the camera's going to see that, but that one has a bit of play, so it's not that one that's too tight. Let's come from this side. That too also has a bit of play, so it can't be that that's too tight. And then this one. There is also a bit of movement there. So it's not for the sake of something being too tight. It's not to say that something isn't misaligned in there with the other one. So there could be a problem here. Now, I've connected the motor, as you can see. So if we turn that with the just a normal gearbox, it's obviously wired up like this. Let's turn that on. I wouldn't say there's any unnecessary noise from that as an individual part, but it could be the way that was meshing with the gear in here. Maybe that bevel gear is set to the wrong height. So our next step is going to be to open this and completely re-shim the whole thing to see if we can get this horrible screechy noise to go. Look at all this horrendous grease. Now, I can't quite tell if that's got metal shavings in it or not. It looks like it has, to be fair. So I think something's not looking healthy. Yeah, look at it all in there. I think we found the culprit as to what is grinding and screaming at us. There's loads of little metal shards in that. So it's going to be, I think, on this occasion with this one, the motor height with the bevel gear. So we're going to need to make sure that we've got that set to the correct height, provided it's not damaged too much. It doesn't look like it initially, but we'll clean it up and have a closer look. But I reckon we're going to need to adjust the height of this so that when we engage it with said motor, it's making proper engagement, not too far in, not too far out, not too tight down on it where it's shimmed in the gearbox. So let's get that sorted and see if we can make this sound a lot better. Now, with it all cleaned up, I've stripped everything else out apart from the bevel gear. Now, I haven't changed anything yet. So this at the minute, when we look at this, the first impression we might get is when I tap that, there is minimal movement. So in fact, you might think that's fine. Now that, nice and smoothly, spins with zero effort. However, it probably means that there are too many shims on the top, therefore forcing that whole gear down too much, that it's engaging too much with the motor. Now, we're going to open this again, and I'll show you what shims are on the top of this, and then we'll make some amendments and we'll align it with the motor. Because on the top of this currently, there are two quite chunky shims on the top of this. So what we'll do, I'm just going to align the motor first actually before we change anything, just to see how it's engaging, and I'll open it and I'll show you what it looks like and see if we can identify why it's an issue. Now, when attaching the gearbox to the grip with the motor in it and the bevel gear in it, that will allow me to interact. I don't know if the camera's going to see it, it's too damn dark, isn't it? Yeah. But basically I can get the bevel gear and I can feel, by trying to move it, how tight it is against the motor. Now I can feel that is literally rock solid, that is. So what we'll do is we'll loosen this off a second and see if that makes any difference. None whatsoever. So that almost confirms that that is shimmed too, let's call it low. So obviously if you're holding the gun like this, when you're working on it, you've got it like that, so it's set too low when I'm working on it. Or if you have the gun up the right way, it is set too far to the left of the gearbox, if that makes sense. So what we're going to do is we're going to adjust the shims, and then we're going to do this test again so that we can get it, so that we have got, like, we're talking the minusculest amount of play between the two, so we know everything's meshing nicely, but it's not too tight, because at the minute it's too tight and that's why it's screaming at us. So what we've done is we originally had 2 of these chunky shims on the top. Now what I've done is I've moved one of those to the base, and I then took 2 other shims, which were about equally half the size of that one, left one on the top and the other on the bottom. So we've still got the same amount of obviously spacing going on, but all we've done is lift that gear up, which will take it away from the bevel of the motor. So let's put it back in and we'll do the same test just to see if we've got it better alignment on there. Now, we're reassembling it back to this point with the new shims in position, or the alterations to the shims that we've done, shall we say. When and again, you're probably not going to be able to see it annoyingly, when I get the screwdriver in here, and I wiggle that, I can feel it's nowhere near as tight as it was. To the point there is the most minuscule amount of movement before it kind of resists against the gear. So now we're talking literally, it's fractions, it's nothing really. But it means that that is meshing together nicely, but it's not under too much pressure. However, we're not finished yet. There's one more check we're going to do, and it's what I refer to as my open gearbox check. So we're going to visually check to see how the height of that motor is sitting. So I'll show you how that's done. So what we do with what I like to call the open gearbox check, we're basically taking, let's call it the wrong side of the gearbox, because we normally work on setting the gears up in that side, and then we use this to put on top of it. This time we're going to put the bevel gear in this side. We're going to build the motor grip with the motor so it's all assembled. So that's all in there. We then offer up the gearbox, how it would sit in, but we can still see in because we have the gearbox open. Now let me just grab a torch so you can see exactly what we're looking at in here, because this might work a bit better. Ready? So if we come down to there, now can you see in there that, oh my god, can you see in there, there we are, the bevel gear is meshing up to the motor, there we are. So the motor is kind of level on the bevel gear. We're making sure it's not too tight up so it's hitting the centre shaft, and we're making sure it's not too loose that it's too low down that it's only gripping on part of the teeth. So now that we know that that is sitting at the correct height and we have the motor at the correct height, so we know we've done that bit, our next step would be to shim the other 2 gears in there. Now, I always feel it's good practice to start by doing that before you set the heights of these, because until you know where that goes, you don't know how high or low you need that one to sit so that it is engaging with the rest of that. And then once you've got that in there, naturally you can make sure you've got that set at the right height so that you can have it neither too high nor too low, etc., when you're shimming those together as well. So I'm going to do those bits now. I'm going to service the rest of it, give it a bit of a clean up, we'll reassemble it, and the next thing we're going to see is it functioning, and we'll see if we managed to quieten down that angry, grumbly noise that it was making earlier. Okay, so it's all back together now. So let's see if what we have done has resolved that horrendous noise. So let's put that on there. Now, everything else has had a full service. By that, it's barrel cleaned, it's hot cleaned. We saw we were doing all the shimming. We saw what the issue was. It now sounds like much better. Because if we see what it sounded like before, and now again here, so there you are. That is another job completed. So again, thank you everyone for watching. Hopefully you've managed to learn something and take something away from today's video. That's another one done. That's me complete for today. Don't forget, like, subscribe, and I will see everyone in the next one.